Alhamdulillah, as-salatu was-salamu ala rasulillah, wa ma tawfiqi illa billah, fa alayhi tawakkaltu ilayhi unib. Mr. Chairman, eminent scholars and leaders of Islam present here from different Muslim countries, and the delegates present here, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Due to language barriers, my presentation would not be so rich as expected. And I also like to mention that you may not find me as open as others, because I am not a scholar or intellectual. I am simply a humble field worker and field organizer. In nature and temperament, there is far difference between a worker, organizer, and intellectual and scholar. Scholars and intellectuals are free thinker, but those who work in the field, those who spend their whole life and times with the people at the grassroots level, their position is quite different. Keeping in view this position, I hope and expect we will evaluate the whole thing. Due to the failure of Islamic movements, or perhaps its slow progress in changing socio-political situation in some parts of the world, Islamic intellectuals and activists are reviewing and rethinking to find out better, more efficient strategies, if any, to face the challenges of the present era. Although such an approach is appreciable and most welcomed, the thinking should be contextualized with the progress and challenges of each individual movement rather than generalizing the entire situation with one stereotype assumption. The aim of the paper is to analyze the achievements of Islamic movement in Bangladesh and to discuss its challenges in the context of Bangladesh and global politics. Firstly, it must be clarified that Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh is an independent organization which works only in Bangladesh. It does not have any branch outside Bangladesh, nor is it a branch of any other organization outside the country. Historically, as you all know, Bangladesh was once part of British-ruled Indian subcontinent and later Pakistan. It became independent in 1971. As a result, the Islamic movement of Bangladesh carries the legacy of the movement started by late Sayyid Abul-Ala Maududi rahimahullah in 1941. The current senior leaders of Jamaat are products of that organization led by Maulana Maududi, whose literature have a great influence over the intellectual development of its leadership and activists. In addition, the works of his successors, such as Maulana Abdul Rahim, Professor Ghulam Azam, Khurram Murad, Abbas Ali Khan, are highly revered by them also. The movement workers are also familiar with the literature of Ustad Hassan al-Banna, Sayyid Qutb, Muhammad Qutb, amongst others. Hence, it could be said that despite its independence as an organization, Jamaat shares similar ideas and concepts with other Islamic movements exist all over the world. Perhaps this is inevitable since we, at the end of the day, are all followers of the Messenger of Allah, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, whose teaching remained with us in the form of the Quran and Sunnah. There is no such ideology of Maududism or Jamatism. Jamat made it clear several times that if anything of Maududi's work is proven to be contrary to the Quran and Sunnah, they will not follow it. The revival of Jamaat in 1979 was a milestone for the movement after the turmoil of 1971. A secular government was established in the new emerged country where they banned religion-based politics. They also established secularism as one of the four fundamental principles of the Constitution. However, within 3.5 years, the tyrant regime collapsed and the bar on religion-based politics was lifted. This is also a unique incident in the history of independence. The father figure of the independent movement was assassinated and toppled down, but there was no public reaction in his favor. This is also a unique instance in the history. We should keep it in our mind. And the bar on religion-based politics was lifted. Immediately, Jamaat was revived, and more importantly, with the same name and leadership, it did not take any apologetic stand by hiding its identity. Although there has been some criticism that Jamaat's main political drawback is its negative image as an anti-liberation force of 1971, which we would discuss some time later. But such positive and unapologetic approach benefited the Islamic movement in many ways, such as it proved the transparency of Islamic movement and its activities, and it also saved the organization from division and losing the tested leadership of the organization. Many considered the student organization as the main powerhouse of Jamaat, as it is supplying new blood in the vein of the organization. The student organization, established in 1977, is the biggest student organization of the country and is far ahead of other organizations at the moment. It has branches in grassroots level and in almost all the universities, colleges, schools, and madrasas. Many criticize it for its involvement in violence and less success in the intellectual field. However, the reality is that they are victims of violence from the very beginning of its creation, and that is the case in almost all the situations. Despite all the limitations, such as resources and violent opposition, they are inching towards success in various fields. Almost all the top leaders of Jamaat are the products of the student organization. Jamaat, contrary to many Islamic movements, is not confined within the intellectuals or Islamic scholars only. It has the organization in grassroots level. It might not have the overwhelming popularity. In fact, it is not interested in gaining cheap popularity. But its increasing number of activists range people from almost all the professions, and most importantly, most of them are young. Hence, it can be argued that Jamaat is moving forward in becoming a popular mass organization. It used to be a common belief amongst the majority of the Bangladeshis, including the ulamas, that politics is prohibited in Islam. Some of them had the notion that Islam may allow politics, but democracy is haram. Jamaat, by its literature and activities, established a democratic Islamic political trend. Now, numerous Islamic political parties have emerged who are following the democratic way in establishing their political notion. Hence, it can be argued that Jamaat pioneered the Islamic democratic political trend in Bangladesh. Many believe that, considering its negative image as an opposing force in the country's liberation war, the main success of Jamaat is its establishment as one of the mainstream political parties. In the third parliament election in 1986, it gained 10 out of 300 seats in parliament, while in the fifth parliament election in 91, 18 Jamaat candidates were elected as member of parliament. In 1996, the Jamaat representation in parliament decreased to 3 members, which increased to 21 in 2001. Currently, the percentage of vote they have is between 12 to 15%. It took part in the movement against the then autocratic regime in 80s, along with the 2 main political parties, BNP and Awami League. We supported BNP, which is a nationalist party, to form the government in 91. Later, Awami League joined Jamaat in the caretaker government movement during the mid-90s. Jamaat allied with BNP in 2001 election and formed the government with it. As you all know, the current interim government started an anti-corruption movement where, apart from the ministers of Jamaat, almost all the former ministers were found to be involved with corruption. That findings helped Jamaat to develop a positive image of a corruption-free political party. In brief, despite all the negative propaganda in the media, it is now well established that Jamaat, which is a deeply rooted mainstream political party, is a factor in the politics of Bangladesh. In a typical South Asian country, where cheap exploitation of public emotions is a common phenomenon among the political parties, Jamaat establishes itself as one that is unique, which firmly advocates constitutional politics and positively reinforces the religious sentiments of the people as opposed to exploiting it. Jamaat has consciously avoided numerous situations where a reckless move could have resulted in a disastrous riot in Bangladesh. That does not mean Jamaat never responds to the emotional issues of Muslim Ummah. Rather, Jamaat has always acted promptly on the issues related to Islam and Muslims, such as those involving satanic verses, Babri Mosque, and the recent cartoon issue. Nevertheless, it has never allowed its activists to be involved in unreasonable behavior, but adhere to the appropriate measures. Where Jamaat showed the way to balance between emotion and reason. Historically, intellectuals and bureaucrats are anti-Islamic in Bangladesh. However, due to the Dawa work of the student organization, and most importantly, the honesty and competency of the 2 ministers of Jamaat, it seems that Islamic movement has gained some considerable friends and sympathizers even amongst many intellectuals and bureaucrats. In the changed political climate in Bangladesh, where Islamic movement is the main target of media aggression, it seems that this support network and sympathy is providing great comfort. Jamaat has a strong women wing which has its own grassroots level units. The percentage of the women members are approaching 33% of the entire membership. There is a strong separate female student wing as well, which has branches in almost all the districts and educational institutions. The women wing comprises of doctors, engineers, economists, educationists, social workers, who, as well as being actively involved in the organization, are also successful in their respected professions. For instance, some of the ex-members of the female student wing are operating even in the top post of the civil administration. Such work is providing invaluable in removing the misconception about Islam and the Islamic movement that it is not possible to build up a successful career with proper hijab, or the Islamic movement is advocating such an Islamic state where women would have no right at all. Jamaat has successfully overcome the minority issue. As already mentioned, Jamaat has acted patiently and reasonably during many crises where a slight emotional step might have cost thousands of lives of the minorities. The situation after the Babri Mosque demolition can be a good example. Thousands of Muslims were killed in Hindu-Muslim riot in India. Nothing that sort happened in Bangladesh, although Jamaat and other Islamic groups strongly protested against that heinous act. That reasonable stance of Jamaat assured the minorities about Jamaat that if they come to power, minorities' rights would be more protected in their hand. Some of the constituencies of Jamaat MPs are Hindu-dominated, such as the constituency of Maulana Saidi, who preferred to vote for the Jamaat candidates. Jamaat activists have achieved significant success in various socio-economic sectors such as banking, health, and education. The Islamic Bank was set up by our activists back in 1983. By now, not only has the concept of Islamic banking and finance been established, but has also proved that Islamic banking has the better prospect than the conventional interest-based banking. Hospitals and pharmaceutical industries are initiated by our people across the country, which are ensuring the quality and efficiency in public health, for instance, by making it affordable to the poor. Moreover, we have educational institutions in almost all districts in the country, even up to Upazila level. Especially in the last 10 years, hundreds of educational institutions have been established for the male, female, poor, race, as well as those from the urban and rural areas. Some are so successful and have achieved such an excellence that even the children from anti-Islamist families are also enrolling there. There are some alleged failures of Jamaat. I am not going to say that Jamaat is the perfect organization and we do not have any failure. We always listen to our criticism even if it comes from our opponents. Jamaat has a system of self-criticism which is a default agenda in the meeting of its every forum. Here I'd like to add, self-criticism is always welcome, but it should not lead anybody towards self-denial. However, only those criticisms help us who is fact-based. Nevertheless, most of the criticism are either based on speculations or are exaggerated. Often it is alleged that Jamaat failed to be mass organization It failed to attract women for its rigid mentality. It failed to face media properly. It is too politicized. It has poor diplomatic relation. It failed to clear its role on the Liberation War of 1971. We acknowledge that Jamaat is not the most popular party of the country. However, as we stated above, unlike some other Islamic movement in other parts of the world, Jamaat is not confined within some Islamic scholars, but mass people are in the organization. The involvement of mass is increasing in the organization. It had 17 elected MPs in the last parliament, most of them 17 plus 4 women seat. It became 21. Most of them are local leaders, which show that Jamaat is more popular in the rural areas than in the urban areas. Therefore, it is not entirely true that Jamaat failed to be a mass organization. Rather, it is safe to say that Jamaat is very much on the way to be an organization of mass, but more dynamism and efficiency is needed in reaching a satisfactory stage. As far as the women issue is concerned, I think the criticism is mostly based on stereotype assumption about Islam and Islamic movement. Moreover, women empowerment is one of the two main agendas of the Western world. The other one is globalization, which targets to destroy Islamic value of family and hijab, let alone the question of how much right they are giving to the women. Our concept of women's emancipation is clear that men and women should work in their own domains without violating the distinction the Sharia has imposed. We also believe that the restriction the Sharia put is for the good of the human being and not as barrier to pursue one's goals. The women wing of Jamaat is an example of this. However, if the indicator of success in women emancipation of empowerment is the destruction of family values or loosening the Sharia, it should be made clear that we are not in line with it. The real success and challenge is whether women in the different fields and key positions are within our network of dawah, and whether we are making sure that women can play their part in achieving the common good of human being without violating the Sharia. We are not claiming 100% success in this regard. Nevertheless, roadmap of success is there and significant achievement has been gained. Media is a concern not only for the Islamic movement of Bangladesh, but also for the Islam and Muslim all over the world. We are clearly far behind our opponents who are using that in every possible way against Islam and Islamic movement. We are clearly in shortage of resources and expertise, although some improvement have been achieved, such as our people have started to establish some newspapers and satellite TV channels, and a significant number of journalists are sympathetic to us, but still we need to find better ways to face the media more effectively. We have one poor daily newspaper, namely Sangram. Though its role is not so important, but Sangram is producing journalists, and they are penetrating to different electronic media and printing media also. Silently, they are trying to influence the entire journalist community. Jamaat have often been criticized for being over-politicized. Nevertheless, that was because of the reality of Bangladeshi politics. As you may notice, the political situation in Bangladesh is not settled yet. Enemies of Islam are doing everything to destroy Islam and Islam movement by using every means. With the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Jamaat's political activities facilitated Islamists to work smoothly in Bangladesh. Nonetheless, politics is one of the four permanent agendas of Jamaat. It is not true that Jamaat is ignoring other important works such as Dawah and Tarbiyah. In fact, because of the positive environment in the last 5 years when they shared the power with BNP, Jamaat concentrated more on Dawah and Tarbiyah. The organizational strength has been increased a great deal during this period. As far as diplomatic relation is concerned, we achieved some success in this field as well. Leading diplomats in our country, including those of USA and UK, come to our programs on a regular basis. Previously, we used to invite Muslim diplomats only on religious occasions such as Iftar and Eid. But now we invite non-Muslim diplomats as well, and they respond to our invitations. They invite us as well. More importantly, they recognize us as a democratic party. The remark of US Deputy Secretary of Foreign Desk Richard Boucher and former Ambassador of USA Harry K. Thomas can be quoted here. However, the room of improvement is there. For instance, we need to have more communication with the international world, which can be done by a group of skilled and efficient persons. We have our limitations. We are working for it. Jamaat's stand in 1971 is the burning issue in the media at the moment. It has always been like that when they think that Jamaat has achieved some success. Interestingly, the campaign against Jamaat's role in 1971 has been limited to media propaganda, demonstration, statements, etc. only. The main opponent of Jamaat, the so-called sole agent of liberation war, was twice in power, but they never tried to prosecute Jamaat. No one goes to the court to take legal action against Jamaat. This shows that they do not want a solution or fairness in this regard. They want character assassination of Jamaat leadership and to kill the party politically. Jamaat made it clear that it was not involved in any criminal activities. There is not a single case sued against any Jamaat leader or activist. Having a political stand is a democratic right of everyone. Moreover, the very government of Awami League, who is demanding now the ban Jamaat for its role in 1971, declared general amnesty for those who were not involved in criminal activities and only had a different political stand. The main problem, I think, is not within the issue itself, but in the fact that the media is controlled by anti-Islamists and they do not want the issue to be resolved. As we said, this is the global challenge for Islam and Muslims. We have to work for it. The biggest challenge facing the Islam movement at the moment is how it should or would cope with the changed political situation in Bangladesh, which is allegedly dictated by the regional and international superpowers. As you know, after 15 years of democracy, the future of democracy is now at stake. According to many, such a disruption in the well-established democratic system is to prevent, to an extent, Islamists from their smooth progress. Politics in Bangladesh is going through a transitional period. Time is very crucial and uncertain. although we have the experience in operating both under autocratic regime and democratic system. It seems that the democratic environment suits us more. Nevertheless, we must pray to Allah and work for establishing such a system in Bangladesh which would be the best for the movement, but at the same time prepare ourselves to cope with any circumstances. To further our progress, first and foremost, we need the help and guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This can only be achieved by following the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which He conveyed to us through His Messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with sincerity and taqwa. Secondly, we have to strike the right balance between emotion and reason in our policy making and implementation. We should furthermore be aware of our strengths and limitations. Finally, I would like to thank the organizers of this seminar for giving us an opportunity to share our experiences with the representatives of the Islamic movements from different parts of the world. May I take this opportunity to seek dua from all of you for our country so that Allah may give us the tawfiq to work more efficiently for His cause, which would be a means to our salvation from the hellfire in hereafter. Wa ma tawfiq illa billah. Assalamu alaikum.